Pluribus Episode 3 has just been released on Apple TV, and we get an excellent continuation to Vince Gilligan's new show following a very intriguing opening 2 episodes. The third episode, Grenade, gets us more into Carol's head and really focuses more on her perspective, using her past experiences to really pose the main questions of the show on a much deeper level. Is there any way back for humanity, and is it even worth it? Why was the hive mind implemented, and what if it truly was the right thing to do? And if we lose the things that truly make us human, can the situation humanity is in really be deemed as the right next move? It's all the bigger questions, but they are highlighted and critiqued through Carol's intimate viewpoint, and that is really what makes this episode shine. So in this spoiler review and explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of Pluribus Episode 3, entitled Grenade, alongside discussing my general thoughts towards it. Before I get into it though, if you want to see much more on Season 1 of Pluribus, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like, rating, and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my review and breakdown of Pluribus Episode 3. So last week, the first 2 episodes of Pluribus gave us a genuinely compelling foundation for a new Gilligan show. It was supposedly revealed, and I say supposedly at this early stage, that an alien-born cognitive contagion escapes a military research facility, sweeping across humanity and merging nearly every person on Earth into a single unified consciousness. That is, save for a small handful of resistant outliers. Among those few is Carol Sturka, a best-selling writer whose dour mood has only deepened since the transformation cost her the love of her life. The collective absorbed her wife along with millions of others, and while the hive mind insists it was only to support Carol until it can figure out how to welcome her into its fold, its obsessive eagerness to subsume her independence, paired with its unsettlingly cheerful devotion to her in all other matters, creates a constant psychological pressure cooker. Carol, effectively one of the last autonomous humans alive, is left to navigate grief, isolation, and the suffocating attention of a world that desperately wants to claim her. But episode 3, which is written and directed by Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad's legendary Gordon Smith, seems intent on interrogating that premise on a deeper level, keeping us with Carol and really getting under her skin. This episode makes a deliberate effort to tackle some of the unresolved questions lingering around the series, especially concerning the mechanics of the hive mind and whether its all-consuming drive to keep everyone content should in fact come with boundaries. The issue of how much agency the so-called others truly maintain in their transformed state has been bubbling under the surface for a while, as last week's Pirate Lady episode touched on it, and here Carol actively decides to press the matter. Her determination to probe the limits of the collective's promises leads her to take increasingly bold steps, pushing their supposed benevolence into uncomfortable territory. By the time the episode reaches its end, those experiments collide in a dramatic and literal payoff that makes it very clear the title isn't meant to be a metaphor at all. Coming to the opening of episode 3, before the story catches up to the chaos of Carol literally stopping Air Force One to keep Kumba from whisking Zosia away, Grenade rewinds the clock. The episode drops us in at 2,617 days, 10 hours, and 30 minutes before the joining, where Carol and her partner and manager Helen are marking a career milestone with a supposedly once-in-a-lifetime stay at an ice hotel in Norway. It becomes obvious almost immediately that the trip means very different things to each of them. Helen is enchanted by everything, the glacial architecture, the crisp sub-zero room, even the chance to practice a little Norwegian with their guide Bjorn. Carol, on the other hand, is unimpressed and deeply inconvenienced, grumbling that she's flown all this way to get frozen. And she's fixated entirely on whether her newest White Caro novel has cracked the bestseller list. Helen gently reassures her that it's sitting comfortably in the top 20 of the list, though Carol can't resist pressing for specifics. Helen also tries to get Carol to take in the Northern Lights and enjoy the moment, but Carol again seems more concerned about her book. It's an opening sequence that neatly lays the groundwork for understanding Carol's misery a bit better, whether it's her guardedness, her instinctive doubt, and her difficulty in matching Helen's warmth and excitement. It paints a clear picture of the quiet disconnect between them, highlighting how Carol often can't quite meet Helen where she is emotionally. And at the same time, it might be establishing a poignant contrast between this shared moment in their relationship and the isolated battle Carol now faces, underscoring how true human moments may be gone forever. After we get the unique opening titles again, the episode then jumps to 3 days after the joining, where we find Carol on a flight back to Albuquerque after what was essentially a bust of a meeting with the other English-speaking immunes. So it's clear that Carol stopping the plane at the end of episode 2 was to get Zosia back. Anyway, Carol shrugs off Zosia's suggestion that she should move up to the roomier first class section of the plane and asks her a question that has clearly been nagging her. She asks her whether the immune individuals who don't speak English are well enough to talk with her, and Zosia then runs through the list of them. She mentions a 68-year-old candy seller in Istanbul, a young contortionist in Bali, an elderly Sardinian fisherman, a child from a sheep herding family in Lesotho, and someone from Yemen. There's not a single medical professional among them, only sharpening the point that Carol clinging to the idea of finding a cure seems hopeless. And then there's the mention of the final outlier in Paraguay. This is Manousos, Carlos Manuel Vesca's character that is yet to be introduced. He's apparently a self-storage manager who, as Zosia delicately puts it, has been less than eager to communicate with the others. So Carol can't help but wonder if he won't speak to them, then maybe he'll talk to her. Carol gets Zosia to try calling Manousos for her from the plane, but getting through appears to be a test of patience. The first attempt goes unanswered, and on the second attempt he hangs up before Carol even has a chance to introduce herself. By the time of the third call, it's obvious he assumes Carol is one of the others, hurling insults at her and abruptly ending the call. Carol, never one to let an insult slide, insists Zosia call him back just so she can deliver a scathing Spanish reply. Now, I think this scene is more interesting than it appears to be because for one, it kind of suggests the position of the Manousos character, and it might confirm why he licks the lid of a can in the trailer footage from a while back. With Zosia saying that he doesn't want any communication with the hive mind, it could suggest that he licks the can to basically see if he can get infected. So he might essentially be trying to find out why exactly he isn't infected, and is essentially going to extreme lengths to try and find out why. Understanding the answer to that question will likely shine a light on the bigger situation at play. So I'm going to guess that this Manousos in Paraguay is going to so many lengths to try and answer that question. Maybe he knows more than Carol, and maybe her response to him on the phone is the kind of angry human response that makes him intrigued enough to meet her in the time ahead. I'm going to go more into my predictions for this in my upcoming episode 4 video, but I think in the next episode we'll get one that features a lot of his perspective in Paraguay. The episode 4 description on Apple reads, Carol tests the boundaries of this weirdly honest world at the expense of her ego, and far away, a resolute individual learns he's not alone. So maybe the next episode ends with another call, this time from Manousos asking Carol to meet with him. I think he's the one person she'll meet in this new world that is like her, wanting the old world back, where human feelings and responses seem normal. But moving on, once Carol is back in Albuquerque, she tries to shake Zosia off. Before she goes, Zosia hands over every remaining piece of Carol's mail, saying that the others have dutifully gathered it from all corners of her travels. Most of her mail is mundane, whether bills, junk mail, or the occasional takeout menu. But one envelope bears Helen's name, and Carol can't help pausing for a moment. With it comes the largest package, which turns out to be a personal massager. Carol instinctively reaches for the phone, ready to demand answers, only for Zosia to spill the truth. She says that it was a homecoming gift from Helen, that Carol had tried one in the Atlanta airport but found it too expensive, and that Helen in response ordered one online to help her unwind after a stressful book tour. Carol, in her usual sense of quiet intensity, is triggered by this and lays down the law for Zosia and the others. She tells her that Helen and her memories are off limits to them. She says to erase Helen from the hive mind's thoughts, don't talk about her, don't even think about her, and only she gets to remember her. A day later, we find out that she's apparently spent all of her time binge-watching Golden Girls on DVD when the doorbell then interrupts her. It turns out that one of the joined has left a tray of hot breakfast, knowing her fridge is practically empty or that things have gone off. Naturally, the tray ends up in her garbage, and Carol orders them to just back off. But hunger is of course persuasive, and Carol reluctantly heads to the supermarket in the same truck she'd taken on the night of the joining. Once inside, she finds all the shelves empty, and on a phone call following this revelation, Zosia explains that everything was consolidated to make things more efficient. Another offer of food delivery is politely refused by Carol, as she wants to maintain her self-sufficiency. But in saying this, she does also ask for her sprouts back. Then, almost magically, trucks start rolling up at the supermarket, and Carol watches, half stunned and half impressed, as the joint restock the sprouts with choreographed precision. So independence, it seems, does have its limits. Later that same night, as Carol tries to squeeze in more Golden Girls episodes, the power suddenly cuts out in her home and across the city. A few seconds later though, her lights oddly come back on while the city stays dark. She rings up, and apparently this is another conservation effort by the joined. With crime apparently non-existent and only essential services like hospitals and water treatment running, they see no reason to keep the grid fully powered. Frustrated, Carol vents to Zosia over the phone and poses some sarcasm involving a grenade. She even calls it the perfect celebration for the greatest week in human history. After this, Carol returns to her Golden Girls marathon, finally cranking the volume up without a neighbour in sight to complain. But later, she gets a surprise knock on the door from Zosia, who hilariously has a hand grenade in tow. The joined, ever responsive, thought Carol was probably joking when she asked for one, but like usual, they didn't want to take any chances. Rather than shooing Zosia away, Carol invites her in, the grenade now awkwardly occupying a spot on the table between them. With access to all human memories and knowledge, Zosia launches into a detailed rundown of the vodka they begin drinking, its linguistic roots, and what it's distilled from. Carol, of course, couldn't care less about spirits. Her only question is how long she has before becoming just another joined. Zosia's answer is vague, if not ominous, and she says that they're working non-stop to make this happen. She says that it could be weeks, months, or even longer. That casual dread hangs over their conversation like the grenade in the scene itself, an unspoken reminder of the strange power dynamic at play. Carol then raises the question that's been lurking over Pluribus since the hive mind took over, and that is, if her life truly belongs to her, why are the others so obsessed with assimilating her? Zosia frames it as a biological imperative, comparing Carol to someone drowning who doesn't even realise it. She says that naturally, they want to throw her a life preserver. Carol, ever the skeptic, can already hear the sales pitch from the outside, like living above the Arctic Circle in Norway at the beginning of the episode. Zosia even finishes Carol's thought for her, recalling her hotel escapade, only for Carol to coldly remind her that Helen and her memories are still strictly off limits. She then picks up the hand grenade, casually toying with it, and Zosia warns her to be careful. Carol doesn't believe for a second that they would give her a real hand grenade, and moments after this, she pulls the pin out of it. Zosia barely manages to snatch it from her, hurl it out the window, and tackle Carol to the ground just in time. And the resulting explosion shakes the front yard and causes damage outside Carol's house. Carol stumbles outside to survey the damage, seeing her truck in ruin, every window blown out, and flames and debris scattered across the yard. Zosia follows her, collapsing to the ground outside, as her back is filled with shrapnel from shielding Carol in the blast. And almost on cue, the hive mind's first responders arrive at the scene, ready with their unusual unsettling efficiency. The moment is equal parts absurd and terrifying, and it's a stark reminder that there will be stakes and explosive moments in the show, even when living in a world run by the supposedly peaceful hive mind. Carol comes to realise that her struggle isn't just about resisting the collective, as it's about reclaiming the most personal aspects of herself. Her privacy, her individuality, her grief, and her memory. And symbolically, the grenade scene and its aftermath crystallise a much deeper question. If you grant someone freedom that includes the capacity for destruction, what does that reveal about them and free will itself? By the end, both Carol and the audience are left in a kind of limbo, as the collective is benevolent and ever-present, but the help they offer being suffocating in ways that feel deeply wrong. Carol's fight isn't against power itself, as it's for control over her own life, however fragile or illusionary that independence might be. By the next morning, Carol finds herself in the hospital waiting for news about Zosia. A DHL delivery guy, out of place in this setting, steps into the waiting area with an update. Zosia has lost some blood, but there's no serious nerve damage. They're keeping an eye on her symptoms, mainly due to a severe concussion. Carol, however, isn't focused on the medical report, as her curiosity is elsewhere. Why on earth did they give her a hand grenade in the first place? The answer is almost absurd, but they apparently would also provide her with a bazooka, a tank, and even another grenade if she did ask them. Only an atomic bomb creates more of a debate with him, but even then, he says that they wouldn't refuse. He says that they would move heaven and earth to make her happy. This realization opens a new, uneasy line of thought for Carol. The willingness of the joined grants her a kind of power she's never had before. It's a temptation, a potential tool, but also a dilemma. A reminder that freedom, especially the freedom to destroy, comes with its own complicated consequences. This raises uncomfortable ethical questions, as if humanity now operates as one unified hive mind, why haven't all annihilation tools been removed? Why does any individual still have access to the means to obliterate everything? We don't know the answer to this yet, but what we do know is that Carol's struggle isn't just about resisting the collective's relentless cheerfulness, it's about the kind of freedom they claim to offer, a freedom that includes the terrifying ability to destroy. In other words, independence isn't just personal, it's morally complex. I do think the life preserver comment that Zosia made was a big clue towards everything surrounding the collective and the whole independence theme on display here. I said in my theory video last week that Gilligan's recent comments on AI made me think about that concept a bit further and whether it may have any connection to what we're seeing. And while I'm not ready to commit to the idea that the force controlling humanity in the hive mind is AI, I do think the connections to that are a bit more suggestive after what we saw happen in episode 3. Zosia saying they are giving Carol or humanity a life preserver and suggesting it was destroying itself is one hint. The joined not showing the true humanity that Carol misses is yet another hint. And how the virus spread and how it now controls everyone in a hive mind state is another one. Again, I'm not saying it is AI literally, but it's a comparison that has put it ever present in my mind and in thinking about what's happening in the world today. I will be talking about this a lot more in my upcoming theory video for episode 4, but so far, Pluribus is getting more and more interesting week by week. So what are my overall thoughts on the new episode? Well, Pluribus episode 3 feels like the moment the series confidently steps into its own identity, delivering an installment that is not only tightly constructed, but also thematically resonant and emotionally rewarding. What stands out most is how seamlessly the episode balances momentum with reflection, as there's a clear sense that every scene is doing double duty, moving the story forward while deepening the audience's understanding of the characters' motivations and vulnerabilities. The writing feels especially assured here, weaving together the episode's central conflict with small but meaningful character beats that make the world feel more lived in and intentional. The pacing is outstanding here too, as we get quiet, introspective moments that are allowed to breathe without ever dragging the narrative. And when the tension rises, it does so in a way that feels earned rather than manufactured. Episode 3 also continues to build on the show's world building in a way that rewards attentive viewers, offering new details and dynamics that enrich the overarching plot without overwhelming it. What truly elevates the episode though is the confidence in tone and the thematic through line. There's a palpable sense of coherence in the way it tackles ideas about independence, collaboration, trust, and the intricacies of what makes humans human. Carol is not having anything the joined offer her because she wants her agency and cannot feel alive because that has been stripped away. Her potentially meeting with Manousos may add fuel to that fire, and I think it's going to help deepen her character even further. Visually and structurally, the episode is also striking, and rather than overshadowing Carol and the main narrative, it amplifies the emotional beats because it's all framed so purposely. We should expect this though, because Gordon Smith is one of the best writers from Gilligan's team, and he has delivered yet again. But that was my spoiler review and explained analysis for Pluribus episode 3. I will be doing a video on my theories and predictions for episode 4, so keep a lookout for that and stay tuned to my channel for more breakdowns on the show. But to those who have already seen episode 3, what are your thoughts on all the events that went down, and what are your current theories on where this is all going? Let me know down below in the comment section. For much more videos on Vince Gilligan's Pluribus, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.